So tonight we're in a non-traditional setting. We're on the webinar, but guess what you can do even though you're on camera and although you're muted? You can still put your hands together in the webcam because in Toastmasters, we never abandon the podium. So here's still a traditional feel for our virtual meeting. Thank you, Karen. Again, my name is Renisha Epps. Very proud to be here tonight to serve all of my fellow Toasties and to make my valuable contribution to you, because ultimately in District 44, we're wanting to get ahead of what we may foresee as a future issue. And since we are the authors of communications and we are the authority in communications, it makes sense for District 44 to lead the charge on this tonight. I am going to go ahead and share my screen. Please let me know once you are able to see it. It would be a PowerPoint presentation. Thumbs ups?
Yep, we can see it.
Great. All right, let's get started. I'm going to maneuver on my screen a little bit tonight. First things first, housekeeping. Please unhide your webcam if you can. Mute your audio unless you are speaking. And please save all questions for our Q&A at the very end of our presentation tonight. We also ask that you will please tailor your questions specifically to the content of creating the virtual component for your Toastmasters Club. All other questions, in case it requires a little bit more feedback and more research, we'll ask you to table those for us, and one of our dedicated leaders will gladly assist you. So tonight, the Toastmaster will be able to conduct a traditional Toastmasters Club meeting, but you will add a virtual component to enhance your ability to communicate on camera. You're also providing a medium for your remote members to still participate and be active Toastmasters members. Tonight, we will provide an overview of the benefits, how to select the best web hosts. We will also demonstrate to you how the club meeting agenda is still in place as normal. We'll talk about what meeting roles look like now that you have a live audience on the virtual component. And last but not least, we keep things extra spicy in District 44. We'll take questions and answers. So here's a brief overview of our benefits. Number one, what are we in business to do? We want to make sure that when our members sign up for Toastmasters, first of all, we're connecting them with their why. And once we connect them with their why, we've got to keep them hooked and keep them in the Toastmasters Kool-Aid, or what we call it. So this is where we want to actively discuss membership engagement and retention. Typically what we've seen is our corporate clubs are beginning to defy the norm. I happen to be a support analyst here at the Home Depot, and we have what we call flex days now. So many of our members now have work from home days. Some of those work from home days interfere with our traditional schedule. So what's the benefit of a virtual component? Just because I have a work from home day does not mean that I have to miss Toastmasters. So this is a very, very good piece of information to take back to your clubs if you are a leader or a member and you have members of your club that are now remote and are benefiting from this great reward we have in the American enterprise of being able to work from the comfort of our home. So this is a dynamic option for those corporate clubs. Also, I talked with Karen about this because I highly support her initiatives and visions for this year's education goals. This is a great way for you to integrate the objectives of pathways and execute those objectives while demonstrating a positive and confident image on camera. And we'll talk about the difference of what it means to demonstrate live to an audience in the room with you versus when you don't have those social cues to rely on and you're on the virtual mediums. Just a reminder, for all that are on tonight, please mute your audio, but if you can, keep your webcam visible. So please take this time and mute your audio. Thank you very much. And of course, should you choose to take advantage of this option, where in the world do you start? Well, there are a host of different options. And on your screen, I have provided to you the most popular options that I'm seeing right now in industries. Cisco WebEx, Zoom, which we're utilizing tonight, Google Hangouts, and GoToMeeting. Ultimately, what are you looking for as far as best, better, or just a good virtual meeting, or good, better, best? First and foremost, you want to redo your research. Is this a free site or do I have to pay for this site? Because now that becomes a financial conversation that you have to have with your club officers to see if there's enough to cover a site that you have to pay for. But don't you worry, there are many free options out there available, and some of them are already listed on our screen. Now, even with the paid options, depending on how long you plan to host your meeting, as well as other features and bells and whistles, that all plays an active part of if it's going to be free or if you need to customize it and it be a paid site for you. You'll also want to confirm what's the minimum and maximum capacity. How many members can we host on the virtual component? If we know 20 are going to join us virtually, but our host site only gives us a limit of 10, we may not want to go with that option because 10 people will miss out on benefiting from the virtual component. You'll also want to make sure not only with capacity, but is there some type of time constraint? Traditionally, we see most meetings are anywhere from between 1 hour and 1 hour and a half. If you fall between that time limit, you want to make sure the time offered on that platform will be suitable for what is already in action for your club. Next, club officers, this is an awesome way for you to expand your tool belt. You can become an administrator and be responsible for setting up the recurring meetings and dates. This could be anywhere from your secretary to your sergeant at arms, totally up to you. And what you'll want to do is you want to test the virtual platform. Now, I would highly recommend that officers take an entire meeting and just join from their various locations and test out and do a mock meeting. Once you do a mock meeting amongst the club officers, I would mock it to the entire club, get everyone very familiar and comfortable with various stations. So whether you're serving in a role or if you're just a participant for the day, you would understand what is expected of you. With the virtual component, you can't just join on the whim. So someone does have to do administrative work by setting up the date and time, which will create a link for whichever component you choose. And then that will send an email or calendar reminder out to your membership base. Guess what? When they receive the reminder, they also receive a link which they use for the day that they decide to join the webinar. Many of you today received a link stating District 44 is hosting a webinar tonight. Our wonderful public relations chair for our district, Kari Evans, posted the Zoom link on the District 44 Toastmasters page on Facebook. And so you were able to use that link. And when you use the link, thankfully with Zoom, if you already have it downloaded on your software, you do not have to do any registration. Here at the Home Depot, I conduct webinars on a weekly basis with our suppliers, and we utilize GoToWebinar. With GoToWebinar, when we send out the calendar reminders, whoever decides to be a participant, they do have to register with the link. And then from the registration link, they're ready to join the day of. Even if they wait until the day of, it will still send them a registration link. So please remember, sometimes, depending on who you choose, they may require a registration, where others may just send you a link and your participants are able to click and move forward. Just a reminder, fellow Toasties, please mute your phones or your computer audio. And give your little sweet one in the background our hugs and kisses.
Okay.
Thank you. And on the screen I have here, I was very fortunate to lead an awesome club in District 44, Virtual OT Toastmasters. They are located off of Cobb Parkway. And as their area director, they really took me out of my comfort zone, because when I did my club visits, I was challenged to do it virtually. And so doing it virtually, I had a chance to really sit back and be a witness to how things work. And can I tell you, my very first experience with them, I was not lacking anything. I still felt as though I was in the room with those that were on the campus at their building, along with those that had joined regionally, locally. Some were across the states. Some were even on the West Coast. It was a very cool experience. So the club sent out a reminder to us with a link, and on the day of the meeting at that time, we joined. And to make sure that we take care of any technical issues early, we all decided to get on at least 10 to 15 minutes. Anything could happen. Our laptops could crash. You have to reboot. You have to restart. So give yourself enough wiggle room. All right. So how does the meeting agenda and flow work? Highly recommend you still flow with proactivity. Assign your meeting roles in advance, like you would your traditional meetings. What you want to do, because now you have a virtual component, you may want to go ahead and also send out a copy of the agenda. So therefore, those who are joining virtually can already download a PDF copy or print a copy wherever they're located and can follow along and know who's assigned to what role. For those who are joining virtually, quite naturally, if your Toastmaster of the day is introducing those roles, they'll want to give a signal to that person serving in that role to unmute themselves and share their name and their role for today. And then they will go back on mute and the circle would continue as far as everyone introducing themselves and their roles for the day. Speech evaluation, very important. You want to sharpen your craft. You also want to know how well you're doing and where your areas of opportunity are. Still with this, because now you're incorporating your virtual component, you'll want to, this is for our speakers. Speakers, if you already know who your speech evaluator is going to be, email them in advance a copy, or they can also download it from Pathways. You can serve them or they can self-serve, totally up to you, but you'll want to let them know what your objectives are, what path you're on, what level you're on. So you want to give that information to them so they know what to look for and what to critique you on. Likewise, with our live meetings, for those that are on the virtual meeting, those that were on earlier with us, and we utilize our chat section of the webinar to confirm that we can hear the audio. What you would want to do, serving as timer, that administrator would want to use the chat section to communicate to speakers, evaluators, or table topics participants. You'll want to type in green, yellow, or red in the chat section along with that person's name, and they know have they met their time requirements. So that's the way that you're able to do it. Someone is administrating through the site versus flashing up the cards, which could be slightly distracting on camera. So the alternative is everyone is paying attention to their chat section, and it's pretty easy to still have the chat section up while you are commanding the room, and you're able to see Renisha green, Renisha yellow, or Renisha red, and I automatically know it's time to wrap things up. And please, by all means, we're going through this and we're grazing through it. Please be journaling your questions so that we can speak about those at the end. So don't forget to write down your questions for me. And I already have some pre-prepared questions and answers for you in the event that you don't think of some things tonight, and maybe you'll marinate on them a little bit later after tonight's presentation.
Hey, Renisha.
Hello, Roxanne.
Sorry to stop you for a second, but could you just explain to people how to mute your microphone?
Absolutely. So at the bottom of your screen, there should be a microphone symbol. You'll click it and a red slash should come and it should mute your audio. Let me know if you can't mute your audio and you don't see that option. Looks like we're good to go. Thank you, Roxanne. I appreciate that. And that's a great segue, Roxanne, because now we are going to speak about best practices and features. One of the best practices is if you are not delivering or speaking right now, it is best to have your audio muted to decrease distractions for the person on the floor or the virtual podium, we should say. Also, for live engagement, for everyone that has their cameras active, can you put your hands together softly as if you are giving a round of applause? Even if you're not present in the room, this is how you're still present in the room. And on camera, we can see this. Now, if you're in a corporation, usually you have a large screen that can project the participants of your webinar. So the advantage that you have is that you can see those beautiful shining faces, and they can still clap and be a part of the live experience. Also, if you are presenting, you'll want to make sure you utilize your present to everyone button. Tonight we're using Zoom, so we don't have a present to everyone button. It's actually called the share button. Depending on which component, virtual component you're using, or web host you're using, I should say, you'll want to either use the share or the present button. And either way, your live audience on the virtual meeting should be able to see the content on your screen. Again, back to our table topics, speech evaluators or our speakers, because we may not have the light device or the flashcards, a great way for the site administrator who is interacting with the live audience is to flash green, yellow, red with that member's name, okay? That's very, very important because we still want to operate within our time constraints and meet our speech objectives. Whether it's 4 to 6 minutes, 5 to 7, 8 to 10, you name it. You'll want to make sure that you utilize that. Also, great best practice and feature, Toastmaster of the Day. As you are addressing everyone in the room, even if you give someone serving in a role the opportunity to explain their role and give their name, you'll want to also, while you're in between speakers, just remind your virtual audience of their best practices. Let me give you a good example. Right now, if I were Toastmaster of the Day and we're in between speakers, I would say to the live room, everyone, Toastmasters, we love the power of effective feedback. Please take your ballot, write down some comments for the speaker. For those of you that are on our live audience, please take this time to take down some notes, and we can create a distro email to go to that person, and that person can still receive ballot style comments from those that are serving. So you can set that up offline. Some people love to use Slack, some people use Skype. Really, when it comes to that, it's up to your preference. We don't have any rule of thumb for that part. That's totally up to you, however you want to make it creative, but you're still engaging the audience. Toastmaster of the Day, please make sure you're always having your face and your body projected to your live audience so they too feel like they're right there in those warm seats in the live audience and in the room with you. Social cues. This is so important. How many of you know when we're in a live room, we can rely upon eye contact, shrugs, nods, posture? When you don't have that, what do you rely upon? Now you don't have face-to-face interaction. When you're looking and you're gazing into the camera, you can kind of see those things, but really because we want to heighten our communication skills here, you'll want to pay attention to the speaker's frequency, their pitch, their tempo, their amplitude. You want to look for attributes of that nature. While I'm seated, you may not be able to see me patting my foot in nervousness, but you may be able to see me shaking my head. You may be able to see me speeding up my speech, or you may hear it. So you'll want to pay attention to those where you can't rely on the physical. Now you really want to use your 5 senses, especially your hearing, to be able to sense any variations with speech quality or anything that may be an opportunity for the speaker or the presenter or someone serving in their role. Virtual ballots. We kind of touched on this a little bit earlier. For those that are on the virtual audience, they too should still be a part of the voting process. Virtual Ultimate created an awesome way to do this. They basically use SurveyMonkey, and they sent out a SurveyMonkey with all of the speakers' names and those that have participated in table topics. And what happens is their first, second, or third speaker, however they want to do their voting in their club, it was delayed for the announcement only because they wanted to factor in the virtual audience. So typically you would see the congratulations and the recap email go out to club members approximately 1 hour after the meeting. The person serving in that role to do the recap just had the freedom and the bandwidth to send it 1 hour after the meeting. Sometimes they've even sent it the same evening of, and they'll send a huge congratulations through the virtual medium, which is email. So with our virtual audience, you don't have ribbons. However, we can shower you with ribbons via email, and you can still collect those to show how many times you have soared with excellence by becoming best speaker, best evaluator, or best tabletop speaker. When you send your recap, if you're not currently sending a recap in your Toastmasters meetings, please utilize that. In my own personal experience in our club, it keeps members engaged. You know, one way we hook people, we brag and boast about how great the meeting was. Renisha, Roxanne, Karen gave a riveting speech, and the crowd went wild. And it makes some of our slackers who have not been to meetings in a while say, dang, I'm missing a great time. Let me get on my business and get to the Toastmasters meeting ASAP. It's a great way to say, hey, you don't know what you missed. So by all means, please use that to engage your members. And when you send that recap, go ahead and schedule the next few meeting dates and times for your Toastmasters meetings. We typically do ours per what we call Toastmasters semester. So we flow usually from July 1st until about December 31st, and then we'll take it from January all the way until new officers are elected, and we give them some type of transition period. So we've already, here in our local office, sent out meeting invites with the room location, the time, and any other pertinent information. And again, the week in advance, the agenda is going out, and we're communicating if we have meeting roles that are open. You don't want to take away from the quality of your meeting by having a lot of holes. So make sure that you fill those in as soon as possible. Another thing to help you fill in meeting roles, if you're having a challenge, especially if you're going to be adding the virtual component, here at Talking Aprons, we have a Officer of the Week. So the officers are on a 7-week rotation. That officer is responsible for finding a partner to serve as Toastmaster of the Day. And in the event that their Toastmaster of the Day backs out, they automatically assume the role, or that person finds a replacement. So that'll be great to take some burden off of you and some pressure if you're using the virtual component. Speech evaluations. We talked about voting, but let's talk about feedback and how we define our mission, our goals, our values. How well organized were we? Did we stay on topic? You'll want to make sure that your speech evaluators have their resources in a timely fashion so that while you're delivering live or virtually, they're able to write down that feedback and deliver it back to you in real time. Make sure they're uploading that for you so that you can reference it later through Basecamp, because with Pathways, it's an online learning, very convenient for you. We're not having to flip through our papers. But for those of us that are still traditional, I still like to print my love notes and keep them near and dear to my heart, and go back and read the days where I talked too fast and nobody could understand me, or I had 20 arms in 1 minute. Those things mean a lot to me. So speech evaluations are very, very important. And for closing, for Toastmasters Leadership Institute and or contests, you'll want to work with your area director for the proper protocol. As of now, we do not have it approved to do a virtual component for conducting contests. I don't believe that would be in compliance with Toastmasters policies or rules. As it pertains to TLI, me personally, I did work with our leaders for members that were remote but serving in officers' roles that could not attend live. I myself, as area director, trained them. I also was able to get it set up where 2 officers were able to go to a TLI in their state, and we sent in the registration information where it would still count for District 44. But again, that's a one-off conversation. Please make sure you see our lovely district leaders or speak with your district, your division or area directors specifically for how that's going to look. But tonight, we just wanted to deliver to you what the virtual meeting looks like. You're gonna find the best host. You need to test it out with your club officers and your members. Practice being able to intertwine between live interaction and bringing in your live audience. You don't want them to feel like they have ever missed a beat. And this is a way for club growth and retention. Just because someone is remote does not mean they cannot participate, advance, or benefit from everything that Toastmasters has to offer. And I think that our club growth director would give me a very strong amen on that tonight. We have plenty of time for questions and answers, and I expect a lot of questions and answers to be exchanged here. So that's why I used some wisdom, and we've left a very healthy almost 30 minutes to do so. And if we finish early, we'll give you back some of your time. But if you would please, just one at a time, go ahead and take yourself off mute if you have a question. And I myself and any of our leaders online tonight will be glad to engage with you. And again, we thank you for being here tonight. Any questions? Any comments? Was this helpful to you? Do you strongly believe that you will share this with your club officers, your clubs? You will integrate this knowledge. You will expand the wings as we soar to excellence in District 44.
Renisha, Michelle has a question, I believe.
Renisha,
Hi, Michelle.
excellent job. Yay, we'll give you a
Thank
hand.
you.
This is one of the best presentations I've seen on how to do this. I think I understand more about the virtual quality of doing a meeting than I have ever seen. I have one question. I know that being on camera is so different than being live on stage. You miss some of those verbal clues. You know, can't really, sometimes the audio is not that good, so you miss some of the tonation. Is there any kind of resource through Toastmasters International that tells us how to compensate for that, and also the most effective way to evaluate for that?
Is there a way to compensate for the lack of social cues?
Well, lack of physical body language is over 53%, and the verbal clues are 30%, so that's over 80%. And when your audio is not that good, like I'm hearing background noise again, and when the audio is not that good and the visual is not the same, does
Yes.
Toastmasters International have anything that helps people to know how to speak well and as well as evaluate well via video?
To my knowledge, in filtering through our current literature, I did not find anything current as of yet. So that lets me know it's in the works. However, as a part of my Advanced Communicator Silver, I chose the manual Communicating on Video. And there are still some PDF files available out there that will give you some great techniques for this very setting, because essentially we are communicating on video. To your other point, as far as social cues, let's see. I am in a crunch room, but if I were to put back my camera, now you can see my upper body a little bit better.
Yeah.
So now, since I am presenting, I'm no longer in a comfortable space. You're able to see me slouch. You're able to see too many hand movements. You're able to see me lean over. Now, if I'm being evaluated and as a speaker, here are some things that I can do to interact here with you live. For those that are just listening right now, they're at bay at a normal Toastmasters meeting. So those are a few tips of compensation.
Well, I happen to have been an anchor for a television before I ever came to this aspect of life. And it talks about how talking directly to the camera, whereas you're so tempted to look off like I am right now to watch you when I'm talking. But when you are giving a speech, to look right at the camera. And I hadn't seen anything in Toastmasters International that talks about doing virtual meetings and making it impactful.
Yeah, Michelle, I know this is something that I've had on my plate. Me and Renisha have been talking about this since the end of last year, and I just think it's something we need to get in front of, because we're seeing it more and more in the corporate environment, that more people are working remote and clubs are losing members.
Yeah.
And Mark Julie said that this was something that they included in her club, was adding this virtual component. So we're trying to be in front of it, and I think we just need to develop it as it goes along and maybe come up with those, because in the corporate world now too, more and more meetings are done like this. You never go in a conference room together anymore. You do it via Skype or not even a camera. So I think it's a good opportunity for us to start educating our members and maybe come up with evaluations for this aspect versus your in-person evaluation.
Well, I applaud you for doing it. This is very exciting.
And I will
Thank you.
admit,
Thank you.
although there are still some imperfections, likewise, you made a very great call out. So I appreciate this Q&A session. Unfortunately, if on my new Dell laptop, my webcam is toward my keyboard. If I look down at my keyboard at the webcam, I now lose sight of you in view in the camera. So that is the trade-off. And now that is the new eye contact.
Right.
I'm looking at you on screen, and unfortunately it's not eye to eye, but in the virtual world, it does feel eye to eye. So that is the trade-off. And also, to couple that with, if you are presenting, I highly recommend, if you can, some people can't, it depends on their work environment, stand and still be able to project so you still feel like you're at a podium. Or for those that can't, at the desk here, the news anchor style, the Russ Spencers and the, I can't remember who's on Fox 5 now, but all of them, our Channel 2 Action News anchors, you'll want to see all those different techniques that they use at their desk. We only see really from bust up. And so we'll want to do that for the virtual audience as well.
And learn how to talk to that little light in your computer.
Right, right.
I have a question.
Great call outs, Michelle.
This is Rolanda. Can you hear me?
Hi,
Yeah.
Rolanda. Yes, we can.
I have a question. I know that there are such things as virtual clubs, and I'm confused a little bit about bringing this component in. Is this introducing a piece to a club where the members come to the meetings, or is this solely for a virtual club?
This is solely for people who, we really would recommend this for a corporate setting. District 44 has a very good presence of corporate clubs right now. And what we don't want to happen is that because now you've become a work from home associate, you lose the opportunity to still participate in that Toastmasters Club. This is just a membership retention and engagement tool. Not all clubs will use this. This will be an option only for if you have members that are remote. We wanted to show you how to turn a brick wall into a brick road, basically.
I see. So they would then, the corporate club would then turn into a virtual club. Everyone will remote in.
Not necessarily. This could be, you know, if 50% of the club is in the office still, and there are those workers that on a given day work remote, so they still want to attend their meeting and they can just remote in.
I gotcha. Thank you.
Because if a virtual, and that's why we're saying this is adding a virtual component to your club meeting, because a virtual club is undistricted. So we don't want to make them virtual clubs. We want to just be able to add that virtual component as needed.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you for clarifying that.
Thanks for your question, Rolanda.
Hey, Renisha, can you hear me? This is Jennifer Smith.
I know you, Jennifer Smith. How are you?
I am well. Thank you for this presentation. You did wonderfully. And I've been working on this for our corporate club because we are suffering with participation and retention. So I'm glad that great minds think alike.
Yes.
We've had some uninvited guests, people in the area looking for Toastmasters, and because we're a corporate club, we could not bring them in because of security. So now this is going to allow us to have outsiders to be virtual and still be a part of a club. So this is going to really expand our participation going forward. We had six people we had to turn down.
I'm sorry.
We had 6 people coming in off the street wanting to visit our club, and we had to turn them down because security would not allow them to come through. I didn't know who they were, but they were just looking for a Toastmasters home.
Got it. Looks like your company is much like mine due to our high security detail. Members cannot join our club if they're not a Home Depot associate. We have to badge in and out.
Exactly.
We're also walking through essentially a metal detector to get in here. It's like a compound, basically.
I've been there.
Absolutely. But what we have done, and you all may do something a little bit different, and some questions I may have to let us rely upon the expertise of our district leaders and our area directors to make a final say so. However, with our club, we have still limited our membership base to just associates. Me personally, I see nothing wrong with it because one of the limitations of a corporate club, you're always pulling from the same pool of people. If you're at a company with the same 100 people, those same 100 people can only join so many times, right? So then if you're allowing them to be a part of your club, which so happens to be the host site is at your company, I would say that that's a very creative idea. You won't turn away 6 people, and now that's 6 people added to your membership base.
That's true. And then, once I can get acquainted with them and see them face to face, then they could possibly become invited guests because now we have a rapport. I see their faces, and then they can kind of go through security and they would be my distinguished guests. So it's a win-win.
Yeah, that's awesome, Jennifer.
That is an awesome win-win. And you brought out a great point because with some corporate clubs, they're not closed, they are open. But for those that are closed, and now you have people that want to join the Toastmasters experience but don't want to be shortchanged, it is a way for them to also engage. I would still say for those that are newbies, if we still find some way to even still engage them, find a way for them to come live so it doesn't take away from the traditional values. If you're brand new to Toastmasters, there's nothing like that roaring applause. There's nothing like sitting next to a veteran that's explaining everything to you along the way when you have no idea what we do or what we stand for.
Correct. So thank you
But
again.
thank you, Jennifer. Great insight. Really appreciate you.
Thanks.
Any more questions?
Zamora. I was curious, are there any plans to create some, I don't know what we'd call it, but some standards that we can recommend to people? So for example, I was noticing some of the people's videos are very dark screens. And then for example, me, I'm way laid back because I didn't realize I was going to be on camera. Otherwise I would have set myself up in the kitchen. And about the distractions behind you and things like that when you're on these things. So I know for our company, that was one of the things that we were starting to work on. But I was wondering if Toastmasters has any plans to do that.
Great question. So since we're piloting this with our district, we're basically coming up with those best practices as we're rolling this out. My recommendations are, hopefully I've led by example tonight, to have a blank background. I am not in a relaxed posture. I am seated at a desk so that I have an erect posture. And I also have very bright light so that it should be easier to see my facial features for that decrease in social cues with us not being in a live environment. So you would couple that with the mute advice I gave, as well as if you are available to make your camera visible, please do so. And ultimately, you're robbing yourself of the virtual component. Tonight's a little bit different because we're coming together for best practices. But if you're in a regular meeting setting, it kind of beats the point of virtual component if your face is not visible. In that case, you're not technically a part of the meeting by just being able to speak audibly. Being a Toastmaster is about being present as well. And so if someone is not able to unhide their camera for that day, I would highly recommend they don't even come on. So that way it's uniformed across the board that everyone's camera is active and everyone is participating in those best practices. So no distractions in the back, bright light, erect position, good posture, projecting to your camera. Remember that one loss that I mentioned, but it's yet an opportunity. I may not stare directly at the webcam because on my laptop, I would lose visibility to you. So my new eye-to-eye contact is looking directly at your square as I'm speaking to you.
The other
What's the trade-off?
No, those are great. And I love Michelle's specificity about staring at the camera when you're talking to people. So I love that. I would also add that as a best practice. But the other thing I was curious about, we struggle at the actual meeting, we have 2 cameras. So we have one computer set up facing the audience, and then one computer facing the speaker. Or not a computer, because the 2 computers start to conflict with the feedback. So then we just have a regular camera that is connected somehow. I don't know all the details because that's not something I'm obviously privy to. But so I'm wondering if anyone else has come up with other ways of doing it, so that you can have the same view of people as you're speaking to the audience, as well as someone being in the Toastmaster spot.
Virtual Ultimate made great use of syncing in a camera, so that way it spanned the entire room. And basically it was from the back of the room, so you were able to see, well, it really was a side view. You were able to still see the audience as well as the speaker simultaneously. So that was one method they used. I'll also admit, because they are a virtual company and that was their specialty, they had a few more bells and whistles than maybe what our average club meeting is going to have. So this is where we'll really have to put on our creative hats and pull from people in our group that are tech savvy and see what we can do with our camera options. And that will be something you will customize according to your club. It may not be a cookie cutter approach to every club. Kind of depends on your meeting space and the technology available in that meeting space. So those are 2 things we would have to factor. Did
Yes.
that help?
I was going to say,
Gloria?
some corporations might have that equipment available, so.
Yeah, and for example, we don't have it at the building where we have our virtual club. We ended up buying the camera. Now, the beauty of that is there are 3 televisions in there, and so we're able to project. So whoever's doing the speaking is able to be seen by everyone. But if you just had a laptop and we're trying to do the virtually from a laptop, then not everyone sitting at a bigger table would be able to see. And then to your point, Renisha, of it being in the corner and having one view for the audience and the speaker, it would be very far away from the speaker and you wouldn't be able to tell, you wouldn't be as effective a speech evaluator because you can see the nuances of any gestures or so. So just to keep those things in mind, I think would be some good best practices too.
Definitely. I agree. Thank you, Maria.
Hey, Renisha, one last question. Will you be able to forward your presentation or
I will.
send it to where we can download it somewhere?
Absolutely. What I'll do, I will have our district leaders to make sure I'm good on branding, because I did just a basic presentation. So I'll make sure we mark it up Toastmaster style. And with the questions and answers we had tonight, I will add more content and I will be happy to send that out to you. Absolutely.
We also recorded this, so we can send out the recording.
Oh, great. Okay, thanks, Karen.
Does anybody else have any questions? Well, it sounds like we had some really great questions and answers, and I think there's some more that we can still do around this. And, you know, Michelle brought up the best practices and Roxanne too, and I think that's something we could create, is best practices going forward when you're trying to do this type of scenario in your club. But I think it's the wave of the future. I think it's something we, as I mentioned earlier, we need to be in front of to try to help with our corporate environment, with more and more people leaving the office and going remote, so we're not losing members all the time. So Renisha has done a great job with this, and we will continue to update and add to it as we see the need. And please don't hesitate to reach out and ask any questions. And I know I sent out the email yesterday to all the club officers, and I will download the recording and forward that to everyone so that you will be able to, you know, see the recording again if you need to tap anything. But don't hesitate to reach out with any questions. If you need help trying to get it started, let us know and we can try to find you. I'm sure in the district we have those tech savvy people that could probably assist you if needed. So whatever we can do to support you, that's what we're here for. And Renisha, awesome job. Thank you very much. And thank you all for attending tonight, taking time from your schedule. And I think we're done early, so you get a little bit time back.
You know it. Everyone have a great Tuesday night.
Thanks,
you.
Tanisha. Great job. Thank
Thank
you.
you. I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.